from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. Welcome to teaching social emotional learning through music. And now, here's your host, Scott Edgar.
Welcome to the next episode of Teaching Social and Emotional Learning Through Music. One of the greatest joys that I've had as part of this series was a sub-series that we did about a year ago and just re-released called Her, Amplifying Voices of Women Band Directors. And one of the collaborators on that series was Dr. Julia Baumanis from Rutgers University. Well, we enjoyed our time so much with Julia that we had to bring her back and to bring a friend to talk about a new project that we're working on. Julia, welcome back to the series.
Thanks, Scott. I'm so happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Julia, just to remind us just a little bit about where you're from and what you do, just tell a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah. So currently I am at Rutgers University, which is in the great state of New Jersey. I'm the associate director of bands. That's a change since the last series. I went from assistant to associate. And I also, on the side, conduct another new change, a professional regional orchestra called the New Brunswick Chamber Orchestra. So I do music. I get to do it with awesome people. And one of the coolest things that has happened in the last 5 years is getting to get close to my good friend, Dr. LaToya Webb, and starting the Go On family, which is why we're here today.
Oh, so good. And one thing I want to celebrate, because one of the things that came up time and time again in the Her series, Julia, was that oftentimes women are involved, but they're not involved at the top level. And I want to celebrate that everything you just said is moving us in that right direction, and celebrate and congratulate you for those two appointments. So well done and well deserved.
Thank you. New Brunswick Chamber Orchestra came out of that series. So the listeners know that series happened, and we had the privilege and the honor of speaking to Maestra Marin Alsop as part of that series. So if you haven't seen the series, go see the series. Which then in turn turned to a trip with the inaugural Breaking Barriers Festival at Ravinia in Chicago over the summer, which then turned into a 5-minute conversation with her about how do I do this for my career and in the band world. And it really ricocheted and started the next thing was the offer to conduct that orchestra. And without that conversation, without this podcast series, without that event happening, I don't think I would have felt empowered enough to say, yes, I could do it confidently. So thank you, Scott, for putting this all together.
You never know impact, and amazing that we knew that we wanted to have Maestra Alsop on the series, and then you never know how pieces are going to fall. We are so proud of everything that we did in that series, and obviously tangible effects. So congratulations. Mm-hmm. We have a new friend with us, though. So coming to us from north of the border, Dr. LaToya Webb, welcome to our show.
Hello. Thank you all so much for having me. It's an honor and it's a privilege to fellowship with the both of you today. So I'm really excited to be here.
My friend, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Well, I am assistant professor of music and the director of the Wilfrid Laurier University Orchestra, the Wind Orchestra there. I teach conducting as well as clarinet techniques. And I get to, work with great colleagues and wonderful students. So it's a pleasure to do what we do. And, it's truly an honor to impact and influence future generations in the profession and in the world.
Well, LaToya, beyond the effect that you have at your institution, you are impacting a next generation and generations to follow and current practitioners at all levels because of a new project that Julia just alluded to, the Go On, Tell Your Story book. LaToya,
yes.
Can you please tell us a little bit about this project, this book, and the process that you went through for years to make this book come to a reality?
Yeah, sure. Go On, Tell Your Story, Voices of Women Band Directors is a wonderful collection of real life stories from many contributors of all mediums and levels within the music band profession. These are stories by trailblazing women of varied experiences and identities. And it's for, the professional world in music, for everyone, not just conductors, not just band directors, but for the entire music community to learn and to fellowship and celebrate these voices in this particular book. So this was a project that was manifested while I was a graduate teaching assistant at Auburn University. I was working on my dissertation in 2020. When everything shut down. So I had plenty of time to work on my dissertation and plenty of time to dream about many things. And this was at the top of my dreaming list. And I always thought about my experiences growing up as a female, as well as a Black female in the profession. And just thinking back to, all of my band directors have been males, and they were awesome, like at what they did. So awesome. They were so inspiring and influential to my life. And it's just like, wow, I never had a woman band director in front of me. Not even for honor band, all district, all state, nothing. So it's really powerful when you go back and think about it. However, I did have a female applied faculty member for my clarinet. And she was amazing. Her name is Stephanie K. Sanders at Norfolk State University. So that was the first female that I actually worked with in the profession throughout my journey in this, the music band profession. So just thinking about those things, it wasn't something that I thought about as a kid, like I didn't think about not having a woman in front of me. There was too many other things to think about, such as being a good daughter, being a good sister, doing my schoolwork and being great at that, a great scholar, playing my instrument well, being a great peer to my friends. So, just thinking, I didn't have a female band director was never on my radar. But as I got older, it was on my radar. And I don't know how others feel about it, if they're thinking about it now or if they never thought about it. But it's definitely powerful when you sit and think about that.
I think more people are thinking about it now than they have been. And I think more people are realizing, if I'm going to be it, I need to see it. I need to see someone who looks like me. Julia, I was getting a lot of head wiggles on that. So can you share a little bit about how that resonated with you, and maybe about a little bit about the process that the two of you went to collect these stories?
Yeah. I was just doing this because everything that LaToya says, like everything that we do together, like it, I don't know if she feels the same way. I think she does. I feel it so deeply. Feel like even though we've only been working on this project maybe for maybe 4 years now, LaToya, maybe it's coming up on 4 years.
Yes.
I feel like we're kindred spirits in the sense that neither of us had a woman conductor. Same thing. No honor band, honor orchestra, all state, none of that. I never saw a woman on the podium before, but it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. Like LaToya said, there are so many more things to worry about. For me in particular, and I share this in my portion of the book where I tell my story, is that I've had to chameleon in and out of a lot of spaces. My mother is an immigrant from the Philippine Islands, and my father is an immigrant from Latvia. They eventually immigrated here, gained citizenship, and both joined the U.S. Army, and that's where they met. So I'm an Army brat. I moved like 6 or 7 times before high school. So there wasn't really like a grounding space. There wasn't really consistency in my life. The only thing that was constant was change. So I wasn't worried about, that person doesn't look like me on the podium, because like, how many Filipino Latvians are there in the world? Like, I don't know. My 2 sisters and myself, maybe. Like, if you know of any, send them my way. I'd love to talk to them. But it's just like she said, when I got older and when people started talking about it, I think a lot of it has to do with the Me Too movement. I think a lot of it, that movement has shifted the lens, or not shifted, maybe widened it to not such a narrow view, to say there is a reason that we feel uncomfortable here.
Mm.
And for whatever reason that may be, if we had more people that were like us in more comfortable areas, we would all feel okay to be ourselves. And I feel like my journey as a chameleon has had me sort of shift and wiggle into spaces, but I never truly fit. And there was a pretty pivotal moment in grad school where I just said, you know what? I'm never going to fit anywhere. So I'm just going to make a space for me that does fit me in my mold. And that was in grad school when people started asking the question, how does it feel to be the first female, and yes, first female of color in your positions? Things that to me weren't tightly tethered to my musicianship and my artistry, my creativity, but were now becoming molded very, very tightly by others, quite honestly. So it paused me, and I had to ask and define a lot of things for myself, what I was willing to give up, what I wasn't willing to give up, and how do I create who Julia is when she's been just navigating the waters and spaces that were made for others.
Mm. Sounds to me like the two of you coming together from your own personal experiences had a call to action to say, we need to amplify others' voices. Julia and LaToya, can you talk a little bit about how you collected some of these stories? Because you talked about 4 years ago, and this book only came out at Midwest 2023. So for 4 years, you've been collecting the testimony of amazing women in the field. LaToya, can you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. So we used a Google document. We formulated a paragraph about, like a small paragraph, a description of what this project entailed. And at first, I don't think we were thinking it was going to be a book. It was just like a project,
Yeah.
That was the start of it. Let's get some data rolling here. Maybe we can do a research study or something. But, now we have a book, which is cool. So we used the Google form and included all of the questions. And these are the questions, how it's laid out in the book. So we left the response open for a while, and we just promoted the Google form on social media, as well as passed out business cards with the QR scan code at Midwest or conferences that we have presented. So all of those things were just done to promote and amplify these voices, and to let individuals know that it's okay to share your story. Individuals had a choice to be anonymous or not. And I think that's really great because there were some individuals that shared stories, and then they were a little hesitant, a little scared to put themselves out there. And, we just gave them a boost of confidence to say, you could be anonymous, but, your story should be heard. If you were the first Hispanic, female drum major, that's cool, because there are other Hispanic women out here that also may want to be a high school drum major or a college or university drum major. So, just give people a little push of encouragement, a little push of empowerment. And yeah, that's how it got started.
LaToya, I appreciate so much what you just said, because I think sometimes when we think about projects like this, it is, how do I put this, 100% just celebration. Tell us your successes. Tell us the moments of arrival. And I am here to say that go on, tell your story, if nothing else, is honest. It is brutally honest about the realities of what it's like to be a woman band director, including, yes, successes, but also the challenges. Julia, I know a big process that you and LaToya went through was, I'll use a researcher term here, coding these stories and putting them into categories. Can you share a little bit about how you decided to organize Go On, Tell Your Story into different groups of stories?
It's not something that LaToya and I came up with. There is a magical human being named Cameron Jenkins, who many of the Music for All people know and love, who just took time out of his day one day, and we were all on Zoom, and we just started spitballing words, just almost like throwing darts at a dartboard. And he came up with the word path. And he said, okay, path. I like that because these are trailblazing women. LaToya used that term. It's true. Every single one of us has some sort of trail that we've had to blaze for ourselves. There are very few women in the story, not to say that there aren't, that are out in the profession who have followed in the footsteps in their position, who their predecessor might have been a female band director. But in the story, there's not very many who didn't have to forge their own path. So he wrote the word path. He's like, ooh, what are words that start with P? Pride, A, affirmation, T, togetherness, and H, happiness. And those words came out of us reading and digesting and really sitting with every single story. That's why it's taken years, because we want to really read these responses and say, you know, at the core of the spirit of the story, they're talking about how a group of people, togetherness, has supported them along their path. This chapter, or this story really belongs in the togetherness chapter. Or this person really, really had this moment that just affirmed the work that they were doing, affirmed them to be their genuine selves in their position. This really belongs in the A section, affirmation. Something that's really important to LaToya and I is to make sure that this book is not just for the woman band director, the female identifying band director, but it's for anybody who wants to know about our experiences, any allies who want to use their position of power to support women in this field. So it's designed in a way where, I mean, I could show you the book. It's just this big, okay? You could put it in your backpack and you just go. And you don't have to read it cover to cover. I mean, like, let's be real. A lot of us don't have time to read something from cover to cover. But if you're just sitting and you're wondering, oh, how do I support this person in my classroom right now? Or, man, I just had this crazy thing happen to me and I don't even know what to do with it. I just need some guidance. You can quite literally open up to any section and say, I need some pride right now in what I do because my pride has been shot down. Open to the P section, grab a story, and then move on so that you could do the next step of life affirming work. The final thing that's really important to us in this book, not the final thing, but something that's the final thing in each one of the chapters, is these problems these stories highlight a lot of the problems that are out there. We know that there's problems. Like at this point, there's been a ton of researchers who have dedicated their life to understanding this topic. These are people's stories and they're the vignettes of just a snapshot of their lives. But we want to give some sort of act of solution-based thinking, problem-solving skills at the end of each chapter. So there's quite literally a guide for you to go through at the end of each chapter to grow for yourself. There's exercises that you could do with your students. There's things that you can embed in your curriculum that help mitigate these problems. So we're not just highlighting the problems, but we're hopefully providing resources of how to move on and get better and solve some of these systemic problems. That's really important for us.
It's huge, because I feel like, as you've both spoken to, that this is starting to become part of the conversation, but it can't just stay a conversation. LaToya, when I see the path, when I see the different categories of the stories, I think about truths. I think about the realities that these, again, are just snapshots, the vignettes of what has lived through experience. I'm going to kind of go a curveball for you right now, LaToya, because I think it's been part of our conversation for, going on a few years, I feel. And, you talked about, Julia, the Me Too movement. Do you feel like we've moved forward, LaToya? Or do you feel like the conversation is where we are and we still haven't seen a lot of the meaningful change that we need to see?
I think we have moved forward. I can't say that it's a huge impact that everyone's like, whoa, or wow. I think it's just at the level where some people, there's some chatter about certain things here and there. But I definitely do believe that change is happening and that we are moving forward. It's just that when you deal with systemic historical issues, it takes a while because you have to work to build individuals' confidence, and you have to empower them, and you have to encourage them, and have to get them to see who they are as people. And that takes a while for people to understand, no, this is me, And this is who I am in any space that I walk into. And I say that often about myself because wherever I go, I'm going to be me. I'm always going to be LaToya. People are always going to know I'm in the room. That's just me. I own the space that I'm in. And I inject myself, right, like into those spaces where it may feel like I'm not supposed to be there. No, I move over like, hey, how are you doing? Like, that's me. So, just having that self-confidence and that pride, and it's not anything that's arrogant or, snooty or snobby or anything like that. When you're confident in yourself, that's just something that no one else can take away from you. And you're okay being yourself, and you're okay stepping into any space or any place that you enter. So I think where we are now is trying to help individuals just kind of build themselves up. And that takes a little while because we have individuals that are reading these stories and they're like, wow, I had the same experience, or I feel this way. Oh, and I see some words of encouragement, or, these wise words from individuals that have shared a story. So that's empowering them and just filling them up to be more like, no, I'm not going to take this. I can do these things. I can stand up to, my administrators or whomever, may be in the way at those, tearing down those boundaries. So I think that's where we are right now, just kind of fueling individuals. And then we'll see the big boom impact. I think that will happen for sure.
LaToya, it's powerful what you just spoke to, because my mind was just going time and time again to gender roles, gender norms, that, a confident male and a confident female can be perceived in very different ways. And Julia, I know a big thing that we spoke about in the Her series is all of the mental energy that has historically gone into how you do need to change, or you have needed to change before you enter a space. And I would say a very tangible progression is LaToya saying, no, I'm done with that. I'm me. I'm LaToya. I'm going into this space, and this is me. If I'm too much, that's on you. That's not on me. And that to me, just in my heart jumped like 7 sizes bigger to hear you say that, LaToya. Now, I don't want to underestimate, though, the power of this resource that we're talking about today. That Go On has been more than a book, been more than a project, LaToya, more than a dissertation. It's a movement. We are in the middle of a Go On movement. And for folks who have been at Midwest or state conferences, we've seen this. Julia, can you talk a little bit about the effect of Go On, Tell Your Story?
So when LaToya and I finally put this together and we figured out that, okay, the best medium is going to be a book. Okay. I look back to our earliest proposals. We started writing proposals to send it to publishing companies to say, hi, publishing company, here's this really cool book that I think you should publish. But before we know it, we were approached by GIA with Scott's help to just, we didn't even have to send those proposals out. So that was the first happy surprise. The second happy surprise is, after we did all the editing and made sure that every single story, by the way, is in the exact words of the storyteller. And if you look at how LaToya and I are listed on the cover, we're not listed as authors. We're listed as curators. Yes, her and I's story are in this book. They will be in this very first book for sure. So we're the authors of our own stories, but we're not the authors of the almost 100 other stories that are in the book. We're the curators of them. And every single one of those stories is in the exact words, verbatim, punctuation, everything of each one of these storytellers. That was also very important to us. When it came out and that it was released finally for sale, which was right before Midwest, LaToya and I was like, oh, we really just we gotta get on it. We have to do a social media post. And she says, girl, stop. They're already doing it for us. And as soon as we told people, all the people in the book were promoting it on theirs because they're proud of their story. They're proud of their contribution. They want people to hear what they have to say. So they promoted it first. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. go on, do your thing. And then we get to Midwest, and I'm just so excited to see the book for like the first time and just like hold it. And then we found out that we sold out on day one by noon, was it?
Correct.
And they had to do another run of books. The warehouse is in Chicago, luckily where Midwest is, and they had to go get and it was just gone. I was like, I didn't even get to have my own copy until months later. It was just gone. And LaToya and I just put on our own social media. Oh, we're going to be at the booth if you want to come for a hug and we'll sign your book. And I remember signing the first couple books and like being really careful about like the message and like my handwriting. And by the end of it, which was like a mob thing, I was just like, my handwriting looks like a doctor's handwriting. And I put a really, really nice message, and then like it's illegible with my signature because so many people just wanted this book. It was the coolest thing to me was watching somebody in the book pick up the book and find their story. Like that, even today, like I get teary eyed. That was cool. That is a tangible artifact right there to just see somebody in their own private space do this. And it's almost like you see them like start glowing. It's awesome. And then to have a lot of allies. I think back to Marcus Morris, who has bought copies of this book every place that he's gone and presented. And that man goes everywhere. And he's given it to a student that he knows that needs it. Scott, you did this for one of your students as well. Just like I know you're going through it, but you got to read this book and just go on and keep doing what you're doing because you deserve to be here and we need you to be here. That has been a cool thing. I think the selling out at every single conference that it's been to has been surprising, but I also shouldn't be surprised because of how many people are in the book that are proud of their work. And I mean, you want anything done, just give it to women, man. I mean, they'll just take care of it. So that was really, really cool. And I'm still blown away by it every day.
I want a t-shirt. You want anything done? Give it to women. That's it. I want it. Oh, it's so, and I was at Midwest. I was at the booth, and it was so much. I've never seen that type of response to a book. And I'm not undermining a book, but I'm suggesting that it's so much more. And, when we talk in the SEL space of identity, belonging, and agency, go on, tell your story is the perfect gumbo of all three of those things distilling into just a magical resource of the stories, the agency, the empowerment. It's perfection. LaToya, what are your thoughts about the effect of Go On?
It's just something that I never imagined, It was amazing to be at Midwest and just to be a part of the entire experience, but also to create that experience and own that type of space for us and for the contributors and everyone that supported us with the book. So it was awesome to just connect with individuals, people that we know and people that we don't know, all different levels. Students, undergraduate, graduate students, professional teachers, at every level, right? Elementary school, middle school, high school, college, university. So all of the effects were just amazing. And again, like I did not expect the book to sell out. And we didn't even have a session to present at Midwest to go along with promoting the book after the session. We were just at the booth, just hanging out, ready for this big moment. And like, I don't think we looked at it as a big moment, but we realized it was, right? Mm-hmm. Through all of the books selling out. I think it sold out 3 times while we were at Midwest for that week. Until, the warehouse just didn't have any more books to bring over. But again, just the fellowship was great for us. I mean, we had music playing, we were signing, we had some buttons to pass out, just giving hugs, talking to individuals, supporting them, learning about their journey. And so it was awesome. That's how I could just close everything up. It was just an awesome experience. We did a lot of dancing and yippies and celebrating.
You know what's interesting? So, just a little backstory that I had the honor of being a liaison at GIA for this book. And, there was a meeting that I actually encouraged Julia and LaToya to second guess calling it Go On. And I was like, is that really what we want to have there? And
I remember this meeting.
yeah. And I am so glad I was wrong, because Go On, beyond anything else, has become a rallying cry. It's been an empowerment. It's been a 2 words of go on, and it has so many different layers that people can say, okay, I am going to go on. And oh my goodness. So we've been talking about the effect of go on, tell your story. And some of those effects, I think, were a little bit unexpected. I mean, we've talked about the success of where the book has gone and hearing those stories of women saying, hey, that's me. My story is being amplified. But I think not all of the effects that we were looking for, or maybe not looking for, were expected. Julia, can you share a little bit about what might have been some of those unexpected results, effects of Go On, Tell Your Story?
Yeah. So what was interesting is on the same simultaneous time of me going and like wanting to hold the book and all that kind of stuff, people were like saying, oh, this is so amazing. Well, are you nervous about the other text that's out there? And I'm thinking, there's another book. I want to go get that book. And the book that they're, I think, referring to is this fabulous book, Erin Keaton Howard and Megan Wagner's book, Women in Wind Band. And I was just, there's another book I want. Can we all take a picture together? But I think what they were poking at is, oh, are you nervous about competition and all that stuff? Which to me, there's no competition. There's only amplification and there's only empowerment of everybody who like, there's so many books written by men in this field. Why can't there be, a handful? I want there to be so many books here. What was cool that came out of that possible question where they sort of did this when they asked it was, I want to get that book. And I bought that book. I'm actually a tiny contributor in the book because I wanted to read my story too and hug Erin and Megan. And then Erin and Megan, we all got together and took pictures and promoted together. So to me, and I see this, and we talked a little bit about this in the Her series. There is this, especially if you're the first, sometimes an echo of what comes with that. And this is, to me, honestly, trauma of being the first is once you get it, you're afraid to let it go. And a lot of people assume that, that there can only be one. And if there's somebody that's coming up that might, snatch the crown from you or whatever, there's going to be this battle, right? It's always portrayed in film, cat for women fighting against each other. And that's just not the case for LaToya and I want there to be more books. I want there to be more moments where we could hug each other and be like, that's so freaking cool what you're doing over there with that organization. That's so awesome what you're doing with your book. And then just learning and growing from each other. There's this leftover thing that people want to do where they pit the only ones against each other. And it's just, it doesn't register with me.
If there were 100 books by women authors, there's still, you go through any publisher, you go through any bookstore, you said it. If we had 100 books, there's still more by men. And I think that's the work that we need to do. That we don't need to pit people against each other. We need to celebrate. And when we were at that Midwest booth, Julia, I saw celebrations. And the people who were trying to maybe cause a little competition, I think they realized that that wasn't the game and that the game didn't need to be played. LaToya, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I share some of the same sentiments as Julia. There's room for everyone. Let's just make that very clear. This is a big profession. And once we start talking to each other, we realize that, oh, I know someone that you know. Oh, I know someone that you know. And then this big world of music just starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as you realize we know some of the same people. So again, there's room for everyone. And Julia and I are here to build people up, not to tear them down. We are about empowerment, encouragement, influence, inspiration. And one of the things that I talk about all the time is that I know I'm not going to be here forever. So just thinking about that and understanding that you have to pass on your gifts. That's very powerful. And you just should not be here in a space to tear people down. You should not be in a space where your behavior changes. Any type of jealousy or the queen bee syndrome or anything like that. We are here for each other. And that's what I have to say about it.
I love you.
I love you too, Julia. And, this has truly been an honor to work alongside you and to create this resource for so many in the profession. And for everyone that will read this beautiful, this monumental, this powerful resource, they will learn about my high school band director, Mr. William Prentice, who I call Papa P. And you will see that in my chapter, in my story that I share in the book. And he was such an influence to me and to all of my peers in high school band during that time. I spent a lot of time with him as a drum major. He put me in the highest role in high school to lead. And I performed in the jazz ensemble and the wind ensemble. And he was just, that model, that example that I think everyone, should strive to be in this profession, and to know that he is no longer here. That's very emotional for me because he set me on this path, on this journey. To be this trailblazing, person out here in the field for so many, not only for myself, because I have to stay fueled up and built up myself and stay centered, but it's also important for me to give to everyone else that I can. So, I love you, Mr. Prentice. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for me.
Now, what I'm so excited about is that right now we have one resource, and this is about amplifying women band directors' voices. But that's not where you're stopping, is it?
Nope.
No.
What's next? What's next?
Well, and I don't know why we do this. I think it's because our brains are just always looking for the next way that we could help, the next way that will help. But we have 4 different ideas of what the next thing, but we settled on the area that we feel very strongly is an area of need of support is the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's already happening. It's already in the works. We're already collecting. We have a couple of stories already. Mm-hmm. It is Go On, Tell Your Story, Voices of LGBTQIA plus musicians. So this is performers, educators, supervisors, composers, producers, anybody that is willing to share their story, whether it be named or anonymous, who wants to share their voice in hopes of making the path easier for those next generations to travel, where their identity in that community has been tightly tethered to their employment, to their artistry, to their creativity. My first teaching license and where I taught high school band and orchestra, middle school orchestra, was in Florida. Most of my family still lives there. That state and the legislation that has gone in against people of this community in I like to call it my home state, is appalling. And you better believe that this next edition, once it's published, will go to Florida.
Yeah. The power of what we saw as a testimony in the first Go On, the voices. And, one thing that I am just so curious to see how multifaceted we can make this next book is, you said teachers, you said performers, students. It's going to be beyond anything that I think any of us can really imagine to amplify those voices. Now, one thing that we will share for our listeners is that we will put a link in the show notes for this for anyone who would like to contribute to that book, so that the next generation of Go On for LGBTQIA+, we can make sure we capture those stories, and it'll go to Julia and LaToya. So hopefully that just starts to snowball and really get us many, many stories to the level that we want to put out. Julia and LaToya, this has been just an unbelievable journey for Go On, Tell Your Story. And we can't wait to see where the next book's going to go and what's the impact of this next book. In my book, whenever we can open our doors and have more voices be heard, we win. And the two of you have shepherded this project in a way that has amplified voices in a way that we haven't seen maybe ever. It has been an amazing project, and with profound gratitude, I thank you for all of your hard work to go on and tell your story and tell everyone's story. Many thanks. Julia and LaToya, any final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I just really, really excited about all of the work and, as you say, this movement that's going on. And I just hope that it continues. It's inspiring to see people take a picture with the book and to post it and to send it to us. So we enjoy that. And of course, we will keep promoting where the book goes and what we're doing. And how to continue amplifying voices. And we look forward to taking Go on tour. So presenting at conferences and, any types of professional development for teachers out here in the states, regions, districts, that is also an option. So we're looking for any way to continue to build and to help our community, no matter who you are, no matter what level, what medium. Everyone needs the help, and we all have to help each other.
Julia?
Go on, keep doing everything that you're doing. We're at the service of others. We're excited that Go On is going internationally. We're going to be presenting in Canada coming up. But I also want to give a shout out to a couple of NAFME chapters that have already requested that LaToya and I speak to them and their student bodies. However you need us to help, whether you want us to come talk, whether you want some of the books for your students, whether you just want to ask us some questions, please let us know. That is our life's work, is to help.
I hope this little snapshot of just the amazing project and the amazing women that helped create this project really shines light on how, LaToya, in your words, that we really are making movement forward. And the Go On movement is just a tangible example of that. This show has been all about how can we find voices that map onto, yes, SEL, but map onto where we can envision music education going. And it has been an honor to get to know both of you better and to be involved in this project in a very, very small way. And I cannot wait to see where Go On ons in the very near future. My friends, with such gratitude, thank you for sharing space with us today and sharing your stories and the story of Go On, Tell Your Story. We'll have a link to the book, and we'll have a link to where you can contribute to the next version of Go On, Tell Your Story, LGBTQIA+, in the show notes. And thank you so very much for joining us today. For Music for All, I'm Scott Edgar. Be well.